there was recently a very interesting idea proposed to the Terra Luna Classic ecosystem. We should discuss what it is presently. Assuming that you at present are marking your material work of art, you will realize that there is an undelegated time of 21 days before you can really get to your assets. Presently, this multi-day pause implies that you would have missed the hazardous development that we saw back in September, for instance, right toward the start of that development. Assuming you attempt to unstack your tokens here, you wouldn't have them accessible till about here, so you would have missed this whole monstrous spike that we saw for 200 Classic, where you might have brought in 34x on your cash without any problem. You could not have possibly had the option to gain by that on the grounds that your tokens would have been locked. Presently the thought coursing right currently is to really change this, have a moment open, yet have an expense that is applied to that, so there's a punishment. To promptly get your tokens, for instance, to profit by this 200 and 300 edition, you could do that, yet you'd be basically passing up 10% of that increase. Presently this thought that was several days prior is basically adding a 10% duty that would go to the burn that would empower more Terra Classic burn. So when we look at this moment, you can see our absolute Terra Classic marked, barely short of 1 trillion. Suppose that we gather that together later on, we will be at 1 trillion. Suppose 10% of individuals need to profit by an enormous spike in the cost of 200 work of art. So we wind up having 100 billion Terra Classic that winds up getting gotten the money for out quickly pays a 10% charge that understudies will be 10 billion Terra Classic. That will go towards the burns, and when we take a gander at our all-out classic burn, you can see that 10 billion more Terra Classic being scorched would have an emotional effect on a near 50 billion all-out Terra Classic burn at the present time. A solitary shoot up where we have that sort of development would bring about extra 20% complete Terra Classic burn contrasted with what we've seen up until this point. Furthermore, you'd likewise have it occur on a customary predictable premise, which is something that the creator really features. Presently, assuming that this proposition really passed, suppose we had 1 billion Terra Classic being undelegated each and every day through this new element. So not an outrageous sum, simply a predictable 1 billion each and every day. We'd wind up consuming an additional 100 million inward Classic each and every day, or billions of Terra Classic each and every month. Presently, I gave some criticism on this proposition, and I feel that perhaps somewhat to a greater degree a decent methodology checks out by and by. Most importantly, the validators would be wounded by this. What's more, something to comprehend is that as a validator you have individuals who are marked with you at the present time, similar to every one of these different validators. See every one of these marking occasions. Presently individuals, for the most part, they would rather not move around or downplay their passage Classic in light of the fact that then they need to hold on to recapture rewards. They need to stand by to get to their capital. So for the most part, when individuals go on and they really express their Terra Classic, they leave these sums marked for a long while and they don't feel free to simply begin moving it around. Thus when you see a huge development in the rice like what we found in September, presently perhaps you see the cost go up. In this model, it's a 300%. You could see a nice measure of individuals really feel free to cash out. Perhaps it's 10%, 20%. Be that as it may, there's a many individuals who go stand by a second. I need to stand by 21 days. The siphon most likely going to be over by then. I won't acquire compensations during that time frame. I won't have the option to make it. It's not worth making it happen. Thus there is a small part of individuals who wouldn't cash out. Yet, in the event that you make it simple for individuals to cash out, suppose a 10% punishment in this model, assuming I have 300% increases, I'm actually going to make basically 270% additions, since now I'm disposing of 10% of that provider, 10% of the tokens that I was opening. Thus for many individuals being easy decision, take the large gains, take a smidgen on that increase, yet really have the option to understand the increase. That way when the cost returns, in the event that it returns, you can in any case repurchase in, and you'd have the option to purchase significantly more than whatever you had previously. Thus by doing this, approval would be harmed, which is the reason I think given 1% the validators. That is a great deal of sense, since right now with Terra Classic, suppose you're procuring about a 20% yield and we go get that out genuine fast. However, on the off chance that you're acquiring, suppose 20% yield on Terra Classic, well you go for it. Presently suppose that Terra Classic marking yield was 20% rather than this number here. On the off chance that we had 20% in, suppose a validator had 10% commission, they're going to successfully on annualized premise get 2%. Guys, that is a big update. If you guys enjoy the content, you want to stay up to date. Thanks for watching guys. See you in the next one.